So regarding the grease in the bearings, I believe that that is not the case. I mean, somebody put some grease in this one. I had the other side apart and it had no grease in it. And I don't think it should be in there. You're basically mixing grease with gear lube. I don't know if that hurt anything, but I don't think they're necessarily made to be mixed together like that. And these rear ends, the oil level in the rear end goes down the tube and bathes these in 90 weight. So I don't know why there would be grease in there. The internet's basically useless. You know, half the people said you should grease them, half the people said you shouldn't. I'm in the camp where you shouldn't. I think you should just leave them alone, put some 90 weight in there and leave it at that. And then 3 of those studs pulled out of there, out of the hub. This part right here, this machine part, is a little bit bigger than the thread, so I clamped them in a vise right there, threaded those nuts off. I'm going to screw them back in, just using a nut on here. See, now the nut's starting to turn right now, and the stud's stopping. The stud's not in far enough yet. Once I get this nut on there far enough, like right there, and a little bit more, then I'm going to put another one on there. We're going to double nut that. We're going to hold this bottom nut with the wrench, tighten this top nut down onto the bottom nut, create tension in between the 2 nuts. Now there's more tension in between the nuts than there is tension on this shoulder going down into that hub. We should be able to continue to screw the nut or the stud down. Now the stud's turning again. Now both nuts are turning. Let's see if I got that. So that stud bottomed out in there. It's the same distance out as these others. I'm going to tighten it up just a little bit more, see if I can get a little bit more on it. So that stud's pretty tight now. Now we'll loosen up the jam nut. Spin that off. Spin this off. Now hopefully next time this comes apart, that stud will just stay in there like all those other ones do. You can see the tension on these nuts are lock nuts. So the tension on that nut is now not enough to pull that stud out. They make a tool. It works like an overrunning clutch, a one-way clutch that'll grab onto those shoulders. They got to be the size of that. I had one at one time, not this size. I couldn't find it or I'd show it. But I had one specifically for something. It was a metric one. But typically I've always just used that double nut method on studs. Seems to work pretty well. You don't have to have any extra tools. I guess the other thing to notice I didn't mention before is those are coarse thread on one end and fine thread on the other. Coarse thread goes into the casting. These nuts are special lock nuts with fine threads on them, just for these. This last one was pretty tough, so I'm going to try a different nut this time. I lose a nut already. I probably lost it already. Oh, here it is. I'm also putting this on upside down so that I have a flat surface to jam the other nut up against it. stud's turning right now. The stud's still turning a little. The stud quit turning. Now I'm just turning the nut on. Make sure when you do this that you leave a good chunk of threads up here, a nut full of threads. You don't want to just 2 or 3 threads, just all you'll do is break it. And you also need to get these tight, but don't get them so tight because you'll stretch the threads where you're double nutting it. Make things hard for you. So you can get them tight, but you know, take it a little easy. Now I'm turning the stud. The shoulder of the stud's going down into the recess. It just bottomed out in there. Now the nuts are starting to turn. Now I'll break the tension on the jam nuts. When you're doing this, turn your tools so they're like this and don't get your fingers in there. And don't try and do it like this, you'll just hurt yourself. Get them like that and just squeeze them. Whoops, I gotta go the right way though. That was the right way. That's it. Now there's enough tension on the stud that the nut will turn off by itself. Even though there's quite a bit of tension on the nut. Okay, those are all fixed. Those studs are all reinstalled. We should be good to go. I'm going to clean this up a little bit more. The drum looks good on the inside. And we'll go put it back on.